If you're a fan of large-scale orchestral music, there's probably been an instance in your listening career when a recording of Beethoven's Ninth, or Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture, or Ein Heldenleben inspired you to jump up off the sofa, waving your arms purposefully and pointing at imaginary French horns as if you were the conductor. In fact, if you're wealthy enough, you can actually have that experience, regardless of your level of musical accomplishment. Just last year, a Canadian tech entrepreneur paid $400,000 to conduct a single performance of Mahler's Second with the Toronto Symphony. As I don't have that kind of disposable income, and won't pretend that I could lead a professional orchestra without embarrassing myself, I'd settle for the chance to stand on the podium next to a real conductor just to experience the sound from that singular vantage point. I recently came across a recording that I'm pretty sure can approximate that experience, available to listeners who have taken the plunge with immersive audio. I kid you not, the album I'm going to tell you about is the most realistic sonic representation of a large symphonic ensemble that I've ever heard. This is Andy Quint, senior writer for The Absolute Sound, and I'm going to urge you to seek out an album called The Orchestra Surrounds You, an hour-long program of symphonic showpieces with sound unlike anything you've heard outside of a concert hall. Since the earliest days of stereo, the most successful orchestral recordings have placed the listener in a good seat in an acoustically favorable environment and ideally rendered three key aspects of the aural experience that you would have had in person: an impression of the room, a feel for the deployment of the musicians on stage, and a sense of music being present in the air between the listener and ensemble. The best LPs from stereo's golden age could deliver on those metrics, as did, quite routinely, multi-channel recordings from a few decades later. But efforts to give listeners a more immediate sonic perspective of an orchestra could be disappointing, as with Deutsche Gramophone's multi-mic'd recordings of the 1970s and 80s. The result was often a mess, with compromised scaling, image placement, and continuity to the sound field, fallout from a well-meaning attempt to capture more musical detail. What The Orchestra Surrounds You sets out to accomplish is to provide a listener with both a natural reproduction of space and meaningful detail, the kind that a conductor experiences from his or her privileged location in front of the orchestra. The Tokyo Symphony Orchestra, established in 1946, is one of the Japanese capital's Big Eight orchestras, and its playing clearly reaches an international standard. Its home is the Music Kawasaki Symphony Hall, which opened in 2004, a space that's been recognized for its excellent acoustics, an ideal balance of clarity and warm reverberation. The hall's 2,000 seats surround the stage in a spiral form, what's been described as a vineyard-style arrangement, and a system of reflectors overhead and the use of a great deal of bare wood for the seats and walls help to assure a sufficiently long decay time that avoids sonic dryness without obscuring detail. The Orchestra Surrounds You was mixed by the renowned Los Angeles-based immersive audio engineer Michael Romanowski, his goal being to emulate the conductor's sonic perspective. Jonathan Knott, the orchestra's music director at the time the performances were recorded in 2021, led the program of 5 selections. 3 were vividly scored showpieces, Ravel's Bolero, Respiki's Roman Festivals, and a short, highly cinematic piece called Promenade by the Japanese composer Ishii Sagawa. There's also a subdued, beautifully shaped reading of The Death of Asa from Edvard Grieg's Peer Gynt Suite No. 1, and to close the program, Edward Elgar's majestic, powerful Pomp and Circumstance March Number 1. With the main microphone array placed above the conductor's head and a few supplemental spot mics placed in the midst of the orchestra, individual players and groups of players occupy a highly specific geography and yet seem to be breathing the same air as their colleagues on the other side of the stage. The different sizes of all those wind instruments that get a crack at Ravel's insistent theme, flute, B-flat clarinet, bassoon, E-flat clarinet, oboe d'amore, tenor sax, soprano sax, trombone, and so on, are easily differentiated. The recording is billed as a 360-degree experience, but in fact, direct sound only rarely comes from behind, as with the offstage Roman trumpets featured in the first movement of the Respighi. With a correctly calibrated immersive system, there's a suggestion of the space of the hall behind the conductor that becomes more evident as the volume level increases to more completely energize the room. Mostly, though, the orchestra is laid out in a 180-degree arc beginning well out into the listening room. The immediacy of the most powerful participants, say lower brass and percussion, is a consequence of the amount of air that they move and not an engineer manipulating a fader. The Grieg selection is scored for strings alone in the sense of a richly textured sea of violins, violas, cellos, and string basses spread out before you is really quite extraordinary. To the best of my knowledge, the immersive mix of The Orchestra Surrounds You is available exclusively from Pure Audio Streaming, the only streaming service currently with full resolution immersive content. Pure Audio Streaming doesn't offer Atmos. Rather, their preferred immersive format is Auro 3D, and you will need an AV processor that can decode it. But anyone with an interest in the burgeoning phenomenon of immersive production needs to experience this recording. It's the closest approach yet with large-scale orchestral music to the absolute sound. This is Andy Quint for the TAS YouTube channel signing off. Hope to encounter you again soon, and in the meantime, happy listening.